Here are a couple of examples. In this example, we start with stealth. You'll hear a bunch of stealth kills. So you'll hear, and it's subtle, and that's the point, but you'll hear the percussion responding to things the player does. And then at some point, the player's gonna trigger the switch to investigate mode, which is a slightly different intensity because they're gonna find a dead body. And then we switch over to another part of the game where there's a lot more stealth. It's a different piece of music, so you can just hear this working under a variety of sort of compositional systems.
Oi, oi, you got a target?
Saw something, maybe. Movement along the tree line.
Well, that thick jungle over there, eh? It's all moving. I don't see anything.
Damn it. All right, everyone, false alarm, but keep an eye out. Let's go.
And the gang's all here.
One of them that they spotted. The older brother. He shot a couple of our men and ran off. The other one's alive. So if you find a body, I'm gonna go, yeah. How they survive that threat? The kid's getting lucky. Luck eventually runs out.
We'll see.
What was that? Someone took him out!
So now they're gonna switch to investigate.
He's here somewhere!
What the?
Chunk the place.
He's here!
Here we go. So that flute shift was something when Anthony went back and re-edited the cues, he moved from the proper chunk part of the cue down to the responsive percussion stuff because he thought, hey, it'd be cool if this played when I choked a guy out.
All right.
Like the drums stop there just naturally, and I think that adds to the tension too.
Wait.
So I'm gonna trigger combat here in a second when he walks around the corner, so listen for that.
What the?
What's that? What the? They're over here!
Shit, there's more of them!
Pull it out!
Ah, crap!
And then you'll hear a transition back down here.
Make a grid, gentlemen.
We're hidden for now.
So now you'll hear how it ends.
Yeah, got this son of a bitch!
Nice shot.
Then 8, let's go before more shoreline show up.
All right. Now, let's get that bridge down.
So I think the coolest thing that came out of all these meetings with the AI guys is that more folks started coming to these meetings because we started to discover that when this worked right, other weird things happen. Like the dialogue that triggers at the end of a fight and the change in animation posture from, you know, stressed out in combat to just walking through the jungle. All those things were happening on the same game frame. Fight ended, music end tag was triggered, dialogue line was triggered, animation was triggered. We started complaining about that in the meetings, and the AI guys pulled in more people. And actually, those exit points that I told you about in the musical file became the guide to trigger the dialogue, which then in turn triggered the animation change. So we actually had control over all that, which was amazing. And we went mad with power. No, but it's the right way to do it. I mean, if you watch a film or, you know, a TV show or something where this is done right, next time you're playing a game, I think this is something that people aren't doing enough. You know, there are a lot of games where you finish a fight and the audio, the barrage of audio things that happen is overwhelming. You know, there's dialogue and a stinger and all this stuff, and it just goes because a bunch of disparate groups of people who weren't talking to each other did their work and got, you know, the last frame totally nailed.